I'm here with none other than Carson Block of Muddy Waters Capital, a noted short seller who has many successes to his name, the most recent of which is Noble Group, a Singapore-based commodities trader that looks to be on the brink of collapse, a company that you called out 2 years ago as, if I'm not mistaken, Carson, a zero. But we're not here to talk about Noble Group. We might get to it in a moment. I do want to talk to you about Snap, because this is a company you've done some work on. You're not here to present a full report, if you will. And so far as I understand, you're not yet short Snap, but you have some concerns and I want to hear about them.
Sure. We've done a decent amount of work on Snap, and as you said, we're not short Snap at present. We might be short in the future, but we have really three categories of concerns. So, corporate.
By the way, we should remind everybody that this is the owner of Snapchat.
Yes, exactly. So, we've got corporate governance concerns, and some of those are well known, but there are also, say, real questions about the ethics of the company, and that's something that's not well known. But also, and this is the area where we're really trying to form a view, questions about the business model and strategy, coupled with the fact that it effectively has a lot of debt in the form of commitments to Amazon Web Services and Google for cloud hosting.
Let's take them one by one.
Sure.
You say some of the corporate governance concerns are well known. Mm-hmm. They might be known to many people, but not all people. One thing some people who may own the stock or are looking at the stock may not know about is the fact that there are no voting rights in the shares.
Correct.
First company that I've ever seen that has no voting rights in its shares. Mm-hmm. On the surface, that strikes me as a corporate governance concern. Is that what chiefly concerns you, or is there more than that?
That's not the chief concern, but that's definitely a concern because the CEO, Evan Spiegel, he strikes me as one of the founders who you don't necessarily want around to run the mature company.
Why?
But, well, at this point, and this gets to the ethics concerns we have. So getting the other reasonably well-known corporate governance concern is that he got effectively an $800 million stock bonus on the IPO, few to no strings attached to it. So he can leave the company now and he'll still receive that stock. And that's, partly, to more than replace the almost 300 million he sold on the IPO. So that is really...
That's a red flag to you?
Yeah, you normally don't want to see that sort of conflict of interest or that just outright money grab. But beyond that, the actual ethics concerns, there was a whistleblower lawsuit that's been recently filed by a former employee who was hired to lead their growth team.
Came out of Facebook, if I recall.
Correct. And now he was hired in late 2015. He was only with the company for 3 weeks before he was fired. And in his lawsuit, he's alleging that at the time that Snap was telling investors and advertisers that they hit 100 million daily active users, it was really about 80. And there are other issues. At the time, they were apparently telling everybody that they were growing double digit month on month in terms of daily active users. And he said it was really quarterly, low to mid single digits, which is what we see now with their first quarter as a public company.
Okay, so let's say he's right and you're right to give him some credibility. Who's to say that Evan Spiegel, who's in his mid-20s, isn't going to, quote unquote, grow out of this stuff, grow up, if you will, and start running Snap like, the public company? Okay,
well, one thing I do want to emphasize before answering that question, and that is a key question. We've actually diligenced the whistleblower here. His name is Anthony Pompliano. Mm-hmm. We've had one of our investigators do a lot of diligence, and everything that's come back indicates that he's a very stand-up guy, very serious, very honest.
He checks out.
Yeah, I mean, he at this point, I would say it's probable that what he is saying is correct. Now, in terms of that question of, well, can a zebra change its stripes? Let's say Spiegel was problematic before. Can he straighten out? I mean, here's the real problem I have with that. He's just been massively rewarded for, if Pompliano is correct, this unethical, problematic behavior. So people who are positively rewarded are positively sanctioned for that, I really don't see them all of a sudden having this moment where they say, you know what, that was great back then, but now's the time for me to really, toe the line and straighten my act out.
In other words, the incentives aren't lined up in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think usually people like that have to have something really bad happen to them before they correct their behavior.
Well, a 26% drop in your stock price on the day of earnings is something bad. I'm not sure whether it's quite bad enough. Before we run out of time, let's get to the business model and strategy issues, because it sounds as though they might even be more important than the ethics and corporate governance issues.
Right, and this is, for us, we generally don't do a lot of forward-looking analysis, so this is for us the piece that we really want to work on more to come to a view. Now, there's this, so for people who are long
We know
Snap,
about some of this stuff, right? Everything Snapchat does, Facebook seems to replicate.
right, but there are some important differences. Well, so one of the bull theses on Snap is that the younger generation, they think of Facebook as, we thought of Oldsmobile. We're not interested in it, and they're not going to go to Facebook. But the counterpoint to that, which I think is a very salient counterpoint, is that Snap is great when you're a teenager in high school and you have your cliques and you're trying to hide things from your parents. But as you get to college and you start thinking about applying for jobs, that's when you want to embrace the wider world. And Snap, with its focus on much tighter social networks as opposed to, say, the whole world like Facebook, is deliberately not well suited for that. And so the counterpoint to the bull thesis on Snap there is that today's teenagers will become tomorrow's prime, they will use Facebook as their primary social network going forward. So it's not that we see a real generational difference. So that's one thing that's actually an important point. The other thing that is also an important counterpoint, because Snap is trying to limit everybody's social network on Snap or on Snapchat to about 20 to 25 contacts, the value of each node in this social network is arguably a lot lower than it is for a wide-ranging network like Facebook or LinkedIn. And that's something that could ultimately impact advertising. One other thing that I'll say as well is, just in general, I've become a little skeptical of online or digital advertising as a business model.
I have to ask, Carson, you raise what sound like legitimate concerns. Obviously, it's a buyer beware with any stock. What I want to know is why it's not time to short Snap yet. You've done work on it, you've identified these problems, if you will, but you're not short the stock.
Well, so in a sense, you're asking somebody who, because I'm normally looking at things that have happened. And so when I come out and say, I'm short XYZ for these reasons, it's because those are facts that can be objectively proven. They did or did not happen. Here, we're really trying to understand the future. And I think I'm okay at that, but when you compare it to the feeling I normally get with a short where I'm saying 100% conviction that this is a problem or this did happen, it's really hard to clear that bar when thinking about the future. So it's a matter of getting comfortable with that sort of speculation
quickly,
on the future.
give me a percentage on your level of conviction on Snap right now. It's not 100 clearly.
I call it medium. I call it medium conviction.
50%.
For most people, I wouldn't say 50% is accurate, but for us, I call it 70%.
70%.
Yeah.
Carson, good seeing you this morning, and thanks for spending time with me. As always,